The camera light blinked red, and somewhere between the applause sign and the whispering crowd, the elderly woman felt her name dissolve into noise. Eleanor Wright, the host announced with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, and the audience reacted the way they always did when someone looked out of place on live television, polite claps mixed with curious stares, a few chuckles that thought themselves harmless. Eleanor stood there in her worn winter coat, the kind Canadians keep far longer than they should because it remembers you. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from cold memories she hadn't warmed in years. No one in that studio knew that in exactly 4 minutes, the room would be silent enough to hear hearts beating. Eleanor was 78, from a small Ontario town where the river froze early and neighbors still waved from their porches. She had signed up for the show because her grandson, Liam, believed in her with the simple faith of someone who had only known her as Nana. He had never seen the years she spent avoiding pianos like locked doors. He had only heard her hum while washing dishes, her voice soft and steady like snowfall. When she told him she once played, he laughed gently and said, "Then show them." He meant it as encouragement. She took it as a challenge to the years that told her she was done. The host asked about her life, and Eleanor answered plainly. She talked about teaching music in a community center in Vancouver long ago, about quitting when her husband fell ill, about working nights at a bakery to pay rent and hospital bills. She didn't mention the way grief had crept into her fingers, stiffening them with silence after he died. The audience shifted. Some smiled kindly, others looked bored. The comments online were already forming. Then the host gestured to the grand piano, glossy and unforgiving under the lights. "Whenever you're ready," he said, a little too gently. Eleanor nodded and walked toward it. Each step felt like crossing ice that might crack. She sat, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands above the keys without touching them. The room held its breath, unsure why. When her fingers finally landed, the first note was quiet. Not timid, intentional. It was the sound of someone knocking before entering a memory. She played slowly at first, a melody that felt like a winter road at dawn, empty and honest. The laughter died. The whispers stopped. People leaned forward without realizing it. The music grew, layering warmth over restraint, sorrow over strength. It wasn't flashy. It was true. Eleanor played the song she used to play for her husband on Sunday mornings, the one he said made the house feel alive even when he couldn't get out of bed. She let the years speak through her hands, the missed chances, the long shifts, the quiet resilience of choosing to keep going. Halfway through, her fingers stopped shaking. They remembered who they were. In the crowd, a woman wiped her eyes, thinking of her own mother who never chased her dreams past 40. A man clenched his jaw, remembering a piano he sold when life got expensive. The host stood frozen, his cue cards forgotten. This wasn't a performance, it was a confession set to music. When the final note faded, it didn't end so much as it settled. Silence wrapped the studio, thick and reverent. No one clapped right away because no one wanted to break what had just arrived. Then the applause came, slow at first, then rising, filling the space Eleanor had opened. She stood, overwhelmed, and for the first time in decades, bowed. Backstage, the host hugged her without a joke. Messages flooded in from across Canada, people saying they felt seen, that it wasn't too late, that they would dust off old dreams tonight. Eleanor went home to her small house, where Liam waited with hot chocolate and shining eyes. She didn't tell him about the millions watching. She just sat at her old upright piano, touched the keys, and played again, not to silence a crowd, but to remind herself that some parts of us never age.